weird. Yeah, it's exactly Game of Thrones. It's like, okay, we're taught in school about democracy and how great it is and independence, and then you go work somewhere and it's back to feudalism, where you have your lords and your barons and your peasants.
Hi, David. How are you? How are things?
I'm good, Agam. Just we're waiting on a whole bunch of snow here in Denver, Colorado. So,
oh, cool.
We're probably gonna be snowed in pretty soon.
I always wanted to go to Denver, so I'll pick your brain when I go there. So
please do. Yeah, it's a great town. Expensive now, but it's great.
It should be. It seems beautiful, but yeah. So today we're gonna have a very interesting episode. We're gonna talk a lot about security, which is kind of a bit of my background. But we have David, which after scouring Twitter, I found you and I saw some of your posts and the project you're working on and you're building in public. And so I was like, we got to hop on an episode and figure out like a few ideas that you might have in mind. So David, maybe a quick intro about yourself and we'll start with the ideas.
Yeah, hi, I'm David Nix. I'm a serial startup engineer. I've worked primarily with VC-backed startups for well over a decade. Haven't ever made the leap into big tech because I'm not really a fan of red tape and bureaucracy. But, I'm traditionally a back-end developer. I've done a lot of iOS. I've kind of been all over the place and also had a wide range of industry experience from healthcare to ad tech, marketing tech, even crypto for a while.
How was the crypto part?
Crypto's crazy. You need a stomach for volatility. That's for sure.
Of course. Right now it's all-time high when we're kind of recording this, but who knows when this will go out.
I timed it perfectly. I entered crypto right as the bear market started and then left right as the bear market ended, right before the spring.
Okay, so today we're actually talking a bit more about security stuff. So do you have like any stories or any, like how, because when you gave me all the ideas you had in mind, most of them were related to security. So I'm trying to kind of figure out what traumas did you have from security-oriented, development, or like what brought you these ideas?
Yeah, so I was in healthcare tech for about 5 years as a software developer. I wasn't the security guy, so to speak, but I was very adjacent to those people. So there's just a lot of pain and compliance, especially with healthcare, where you have protected health information. And should you accidentally breach that information, whether intentional or not, at least the U.S. government can fine you, millions of dollars. I'm not kidding. It would absolutely ruin you. So but the pain of going through getting compliance is where these ideas are coming from.
Yeah, it's really an annoying part. And the cool thing about that is that you probably experienced the most strict rules ever, right? So healthcare is probably
very strict.
It's like on top there with banks and whatever. And so all these ideas can translate a lot more easily to other kind of industries, right? Okay.
Right. And the truth is any startup, really any business, you're going to have to worry about compliance to some degree.
Yeah.
Not as bad as, like currently I'm in ad tech, marketing tech in my 9-to-5, and we have to worry about SOC 2 compliance and PII, which is personally identifiable information. It's not as bad as healthcare, but every business has to deal with it.
Yeah. You won't have serious big enterprise clients if you don't have those types of compliances.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So it's actually, I would say it's also kind of like, it's a sales tool, but it's like an annoying one that you have to have instead of being like an upgrade. Yeah. I guess there's some like reason for it. We're always kind of bashing it because I guess we need to implement it, but there's some like smart things about it. But yeah. So you had like one idea that we can start with, which is the infrastructure compliance. Maybe you can share what you thought about there and how people can maybe create this thing.
Yeah, this gets into DevOps or DevSecOps maybe, but when you spin up your infrastructure, like your databases, your services, how do you know they're secure? I think especially a lot of people starting out, they don't realize that, hey, maybe even a simple thing like you should not expose your database over the public internet, for example,
Yeah.
with just a username and password. Like you at least need an IP whitelist, perhaps. Ideally, though, that's your database, which houses all your data, obviously, should never be exposed over the public internet and just through a private connection.
Mm-hmm. So let's say I'm either an indie hacker or I'm starting my own startup. How do I make sure I know all of these things, or what is this idea kind of coming to help me with? So I have, like, let's say this database. I don't know anything about security. I have this database up. It's open to every port and IP out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's actually a great problem or a gap that I see. Like perhaps someone could come up with a course or a short book, or maybe you can offer a service to get them up and running quickly in a secure fashion, either on a cloud provider, but those are expensive. I would have to look into like what infrastructure as a service, like Render, most likely Heroku, Fly.io. They, I know Render and Fly allow you to just interact with the database over a, in a virtual,
you create like a private network. Yeah,
right. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, in the VPC, the first virtual private cloud, they just give you out of the bat. I mean, you could wire that up all yourself in like AWS or Google Cloud, but that's a lot more effort.
So just to see that I understand this, so you have like either we can talk about the go-to-markets, which you gave like a few nuggets there that I'll poke around afterwards. But let's say I have this service. Are you giving me some kind of compliance at the end of the road, or am I just getting like good security essentials, basically? Like, what is this a checklist? Is this actual tests? Is this an infrastructure as a service thing? Like, where do you place this?
It could be all of the above, and all of these ideas are very loose and vague right now. Giving someone compliance at the end of it, that's asking a lot, and it would increase the value of your service for sure. But I would have to research, like, what are the legal implications there? Like, what am I on the hook for? Because compliance is more than just protecting your database. It's also, your policies, and there's just a whole lot more that goes with it.
You gave me a cool idea that might like be cool with this idea. So there are a lot of companies that actually help you get compliant. So a few of them, to name a few, are Vanta, Anecdotes, those types of companies. And they actually, at the end of the road, they actually help you get that SOC 2 or whatever compliance you need.
Right.
You're actually saying something interesting, because you're saying, I don't want to deal with all that legal, hassle to make sure this is really compliant. Maybe I can help you be secure. And if you're going to get that compliance, maybe we can create like some kind of an affiliate system to those guys so they can give the last stamp, but you're already pretty secure. So like, if you want no bullshit security, use us. The moment you want to be compliant, it's going to be an easier road, an easier path to go to them and get really compliant, because we have like a working relationship with them. That could be actually really cool, because you're cutting off a lot of the extra bullshit that you need to deal with, right? To actually get compliant. So I kind of like that.
That is a really neat idea, to partner with those that can get you to compliance. Is that the gist here that we're getting at?
Yeah. The thing is, the value prop that I'm going to ask, maybe, and we can kind of like brainstorm this now, is why wouldn't I go directly to them and start it with them and get compliant from day zero? That's like the only kind of thought I have. What I could potentially say is there is compliance and there's actual essential security stuff. So when you're starting, you might not want to deal with all the compliance, but you still want to make sure you're secure and you're not compliant, but you're on a good path to be compliant eventually. So like tomorrow you have a product launch, you don't want to go through all the compliance, but you still want to be secure. I guess that's the kind of market that you want to target. So maybe indie hackers, people on product hunt, maybe, we can jump straight to marketing ideas. But you started saying stuff about courses, about like, maybe cold outreach to people and tell them I see a problem here and there.
The interesting thing about this space is, and just in security in general, people don't feel like it's a problem until it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So how do you convince, and this, I don't know the answer here. Like, how do you convince an indie hacker who's just trying to ship something as fast as they can? Like, how do you convince them, hold on, you got to worry about security and compliance? Like, it's such a downer.
I have like at least 3 ideas. Tell me what you think. One of them is each product launch on Product Hunt, you can kind of do a scan and send them like a report and tell them, look, you have a problem. I see you're on Product Hunt. I know you might not want to deal with it right now because you're launching, but here's the report you can deal with afterwards. So because a lot of people are coming into your website, you probably want to be secure. So that's kind of like more tailored cold approaches. The second one that I'm thinking is you're building in public, right? Maybe we can diverge into that for a second. You can explain what that is and like why you're doing it. But I think we can also target that, because if you're building in public, you're giving out a lot of information. So people can contact you and maybe help you out with security.
Right. You that is a great point. You could be giving out a lot of information. You probably shouldn't be. I don't think build in public means 100% transparency, because
you're not giving your environment variables in public, right?
Well, right. You definitely shouldn't do that. But going back to your last point about the product hunt, so full disclaimer, I am not a cybersecurity expert, but I have a good colleague who is, and he's worked in it. And I was talking to him about this idea, and he made a good point that there's a big legal gray area here, because if you were to do a scan or try to white hack, do something to like someone's product, for example, that might actually be illegal.
Yeah.
You need to look at their security.txt file, which they probably don't have because it's an indie hacker.
If they have the security.txt, they're probably not your customer at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And you would know more about what's in that than than I do. But if they have a bug bounty, then you're kind of allowed to hack within those guidelines. So that's the interesting part, because I thought the exact same thing. Like, wouldn't it be cool to white hack so you're being responsible, but you have to be invited to do that to make it legal, is what from my understanding.
Let's give a big disclaimer on this episode. Like, whatever at least I say, you can join me if you want. Don't, like, it's not legal advice, but
none of this is legal advice at all.
Consult with your lawyer. But I think that there are a few things that are public that like acting like a normal user, you could see like there's a problem here. I'm not saying, start doing lateral movements in their network and figure out, deploy 0 days to figure out if they have a problem. That's
right.
That's going to be like a bit problematic, I think. But seeing if they have like an open database, I think that's public. You can tell them it's public. I didn't do anything with it. But I think that, it might be gray. Let's say, check it out yourself if you're going to do it, but it's just an idea. But I want to kind of jump back to the build in public. So you're doing that. Sure. Why are you doing it?
I'm really doing it because I think it's fun. I mean, I follow other build in public people, and it's just really neat. It's really learn in public more than anything else. I think that's the whole build in public spirit. So I'm doing it just to share, my knowledge, what I know. Maybe hopefully something will catch on and I'll get known for something potentially, and just to help other people. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm a very experienced software engineer, and there's a lot who aren't. So maybe by building in public, they can,
see what you're doing
of software engineering. Yep.
And I guess that a lot of the problems that you have when you create your own business, it's kind of like everyone needs to reinvent the wheel, and maybe they can see something that you did, learn from it themselves, and skip the hard lesson. We can say that.
Well, yeah. Although sometimes you have to fail. That's the best way to learn. But
Mm-hmm.
what's also been neat is asking questions, and there's people out there with great knowledge, and it's just amazing some of the help you can get. So it's a way to, one of the trade-offs to being an indie hacker is potentially loneliness, and this is a way to
Mm-hmm.
be part of a community and not be so lonely.
Definitely. And I think it's also like you can either be an expert and teach people, or you can go from the ground up sometimes and say, I'm learning or I'm trying something new. You can join my story. Those are like two ways to kind of hook people into your story. And I think that it's a great way to start, especially if you're an indie hacker. Like in a lot of the cases, the community, like you said, being vulnerable and showing people what you're doing, people appreciate that. So I think it's a
it's
cool way
pretty
to go.
powerful.
Yeah. So
I definitely
people,
agree along the lines of, especially if you're a beginner and you're documenting that learning journey, I think it's just really neat.
mm-hmm. And then you can also go back, look at it and say like, what did I do there? Or, that was cool.
All the time.
Yeah.
What was I thinking? Yeah.
So just to hook this back into the idea, I think that in my mind, at least, you have like indie hackers, then you have inside of that, you have the build in public guys, which basically share their story. And then you have like an even like smaller segment inside of that, which is the open source guys, which say, I'm going to also open source what I'm doing. One of them is Ellie, is a good friend of mine. I'll post also a link to what he's doing. But basically, they open source their product and they say, this is open source. You can help me build it. I have a hosted version or whatever, and you can buy it there. What you could do with this idea is you can target those open source guys and also find stuff in their open source repo, right? So that's another way you can actually create a PR, a pull request, and show them like, you have this security thing. Maybe you want to use this service. We'll let you know about anything else that we find. We're constantly updating this security database of critical problems that you might have in the future also. So that's another way to target it.
Open source is another gray area. So again, not legal advice, but
yeah.
I wonder if you were to take that open source software and host it yourself and hack your own stuff,
mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's more kosher.
I feel it is, but now we're getting into really radical debate.
It's I honestly don't know the answer. Like you'd have to.
I think if it's your own server, it's your own property. But again, we're not lawyers.
Yeah.
The last idea I have about that is maybe you could create, all these starter packs, these starter boilerplates.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either create your own secure one for SaaS, or you can create pull requests on all of those and say, like, these are a few components I would add to make sure your starter is security compliant, and ask them to maybe give you a shout out or something like that. But there are a lot of ways to nobody's really targeting, and this is the cool thing you're bringing up with this idea. Nobody's really targeting indie hackers, right? Indie hackers don't think about security, but they need security. They want customers, they want clients. They're hosting interesting data. They have probably some payment going on there. They have personal information saved somewhere. They need security, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cool segment. It's not maybe like a huge enterprise segment, but you could still create a viable business from that. There are enough people in the community for that, right?
As long as they care about security, if they think it's a problem.
Okay.
Because along those lines, and I think you were sort of hinting at this, but there's a lot of SaaS boilerplates out there too. And I'm really curious, like, how secure are those? And I know they use Next.js and Laravel, however you say it, the PHP one, Rails, etc. And all those frameworks should, protect against SQL injection and these common, cross-site request forgery. They should protect you against all that stuff. But still, you just never know, like, what that boilerplate's really giving you.
So the way I look at security is that you have like these primitives that could be like an SQL injection or an XSS or whatever, but then you have logical, like,
totally
problems, right? So you could still have a logical, let's say, race condition somewhere that could make someone get twice the amount of credits in your application. That's a security problem, right?
Yep.
So these types of things, while we still write code as humans, let's say that, you'll have those logical errors. So having something to help with that could be amazing. The problem is it's very hard to also detect that, right? Because it's not one of those primitives. You're not saying, oh, this HTML that you're getting is not, it could become an XSS here because you're putting it into the document. So yeah.
Right.
Okay. Next one that you have, just so we don't slide over our time, is you said indie hacker pen testing, which I think is kind of similar, or did you have like another idea?
It's kind of similar to what we were talking about. I mean, you could automate pen testing and, as you alluded to, give them a report of some kind. I know there's various tools that automate that. I don't know if that's the moat there seems smaller because there's a lot of stuff off the shelf.
I think it's really cool because, again, nobody's targeting the community with that. Everyone's trying to say, those indie hacker posts where they're like, give me your website and I'll tell you if your landing page sucks or what sucks, or your SEO, I'll tell you what's going on with your SEO.
Oh, that's true.
Nobody's doing that with securities.
Like, roast my security.
Exactly. And I think that could be really cool, and it could actually become a really cool productized service, right? You could say, I'll be your personal indie hacker pen tester for $100 a month or something like that.
Right. The other truth is the indie hacker market, we're cheap. So that's
maybe not 100.
Maybe not 100. Probably not 100 at all. Kind of the price point I found, and this is through talking with other creators and indie hackers as well, but there seems to be a tolerance from like 99 to 200 as a one-time fee. People seem to be sensitive toward any subscription-based service unless you're providing just a ton of value.
Yeah.
So, but that market exploration needs to happen, I think.
Nobody's really targeting it, so it needs to be somewhere there. What maybe could be like some value I'm thinking about is, while I'm developing, maybe you can review my pull requests, or maybe I can ask you questions. That's a lot of value, right? If we're looking at security, and it's probably the cheapest they'll find.
And I'm sure there are products out there that, use AI and LLMs to try to detect insecure code from that standpoint.
So you can probably create like a pretty good margin of, profit from if you build something at least semi-automated.
As a programmer, like, I want to build something automated, but there's still, there's a lot of money to be made in services too, even though you could be trading time for money.
You could do kind of like both. That's the cool thing. You can always start with that and go that way. So, okay. We gave, I think, the audience a bit of security-related ideas in the indie hacker space. I do want to ask you a few questions. So,
sure.
You would consider yourself an indie hacker, right?
I do, yes.
Okay,
I'm really a side hustler, so I work 9 to 5, have no intention of leaving until I can replace my income.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that are listening to this are probably thinking about doing the exact same thing you're doing. Maybe you have like tips or kind of thoughts after you started doing it, because it's way different than thinking about it in your head.
To be a side hustler, or just to be an indie hacker?
Indie hacker, side hustler, whatever. Whatever thoughts you have.
So I'm old. Over a decade ago, in my late 20s. Wow, yeah, it was a long time ago. Exactly. But so when I was around 26, 27, I did the full, I'm going to quit my job, be an entrepreneur. Actually quit my job, move to Denver, where I live now. I used to live in Texas. That was back in
I'm in
2007.
Texas.
Oh, you're in Texas?
Yeah,
Where?
In Dallas.
Holy crap. That's, I grew up in Irving.
Okay. We should have talked about that in the beginning, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mention it. So, but yeah, Texas is too hot for me, man.
I didn't experience the summer here yet, so pray for me.
Well, I will. Yeah. Last summer was brutal, I heard. Hopefully this one will be better. But yeah, anyway, I did the whole, I'm going to quit my job and go all in. And I didn't know how to program at that time. I really, I had no idea what I was doing. And the end result was I just ended up going broke. So this whole concept of you need to have your back against the wall to like make good decisions. Like, no. It's much better, I think, to, you have a stable source of income and you just work on the side. Now, the trade-off is you're going to work slower because when you have all day to just work on your stuff, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But back then I was also undisciplined, and there were other reasons too. I was just stupid.
So how did you build that discipline? Because I think that's one of the, like, nobody's really talking about this, but I think it's one of those big things for indie hackers to get disciplined and actually do the work, right? Because when you have a boss and they tell you got to do this or else, it's easy to get that discipline. But if you're your own boss and you're not used to that, how do you build that?
So that's a great question. And I think the answer is I got married and had children.
Yes.
Not that, well, my wife is the boss, I'll just say that. But if
she's listening, she's the boss.
Right. No, she's great. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, that really forces you, especially children are wonderful, but your time is very limited, but it's really a good thing because it forces you to be really diligent about where am I spending my time and is this the most important thing I should be doing? And you it's like you filter out all the crap I used to do, like spend hours on Reddit for no reason and stuff like that.
Yeah, you basically, you're seeing a small human being you brought into the world and you're like, I cannot do Reddit right now. I need to feed this.
No. And it's more like when you finally have free time, you're like, okay, I'm not. Now, sometimes it is nice to just veg out to a movie or whatever. You need that. But it's like, I'm going to go work out, or I'm going to go, build something meaningful. And this indie hacking stuff is all about freedom. I think it's about being able to work on what you want, when you want, on your own terms. So, but for me, having a family, I mean, it forces that discipline upon you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never heard that answer yet, but I guess my friends still don't have the children as a reason. But
it's not something you can't just go out and be like, I'm just going to have a family to be disciplined. Like, no, that's you're missing it around.
It's the wrong way to look at it. You'll start seeing a community of indie hackers that start a family just to get disciplined.
Right. Yeah. So I really think when my children are older now, they're 5 and 8, so they're much more independent. But when you have toddlers and babies, there was no way I would have any time for what I'm doing now. Like I just had to be heads down, work my job, and raise kids. But the good news is, like, we humans, we grow up and we learn to be more independent, hopefully.
Yeah. The hopefully part is important. Yeah.
My kids did, at least, thank goodness.
That's good. So you started this indie hacker journey when was that exactly?
I mean, I would trace it all the way back to 2007 when I first tried that. I'm going to go all in and went broke. I've just always had that entrepreneurial spirit for whatever reason. I've always hated the hierarchy of, the 9-to-5 world, and climbing the corporate ladder. It just never really made sense to me.
The politics and all that Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, it's exactly Game of Thrones. It's like, okay, we're taught in school about democracy and how great it is and independence, and then you go work somewhere and it's back to feudalism, where you have your lords and your barons and your peasants.
Yeah. That's a good one. So I'm kind of wondering, you what you're doing right now, maybe you can share a bit about that. And also we're going to hook this up to this episode with the ideas that we brought in the beginning. So
awesome.
Yeah.
My current project right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can see it. It's yournextdomain.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say I'm a domain expert, but as I was following some of these indie hacker communities, I found some really interesting people that both invested in domains, and what I'm more interested in is they start a business from a really good domain, because there's still power in a good domain, especially a .com. With SEO, Google really only cares about user behavior. So if they go on your site and they stay there a long time, or even before that, if they click on your site, they know that, okay, this website is attractive to users. And I think a domain, especially a good one, is a sense of credibility and authority for people to do that. And so I just got obsessed with it, and I started doing some research, and a lot of this data is open, it's ugly, and it's messy, and I have some data engineering skills. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to gather all these domains, because the problem is there's, domain investors, they go to all these different websites all over the place to figure stuff out. So I'm like, why don't I just bring that together in a easy, presentable way for people? Because I was shocked that like really decent domains, .coms you can get for, $1,000 or $2,000, which I don't think is much.
Yeah.
For a really good domain.
So basically it's a newsletter right now, right?
Right now it's a newsletter, and I have plans to make it a web app where you can go and filter and search quite easily. But yeah, it's a newsletter. It's just once a week. It's still a very manual process for me, so I'm looking to automate that. And
that's actually an upside right now for people, right? It's manually curated in some way. So
yeah, and I've been working toward getting AI to help me classify and filter some things better, which is working out pretty good.
Why are you not like creating a domain VC? So you like say, okay, this domain is great, it's undervalued, I'll just buy it, and have like a portfolio.
I'm doing that too. I did buy one. There have been some others that looked really good. One was, I'll just say, downpaymentassistance.com. And
that sounds really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I lost that auction because I would need to look. I think it approached $2,000. But part of why I let it go was because I just don't have the time to go. I have no clue what down payment assistance, like what's involved there. I love that industry though, because it's real estate and it's very boring and very old. Like I love those industries, but those
are the ones that have the money
every day. Yeah, exactly.
So where do you want to get, like, what's your end goal with it? Do you want that to kind of sustain you and give you that freedom, that like the goal of indie hackers to have that project that holds you, or is that something you do and you just like have fun doing it? Where are you at with that?
I do have fun, but I'm still trying to figure out what's the right market for this domain idea. And I don't know if I did a great job of validating the market first. I've validated that domain investors that's not the market I'm going to go after. I'm more focusing on indie hackers and on, startups with seed money or VC money. Just people have money to spend like 10, 20 grand on a good domain potentially. And I'm kind of playing with this idea of like, you don't need to go to domain investor or broker, like just go to this website and we'll show you some good stuff and you can go buy it yourself as a hypothesis. Like that, I may be totally wrong there, but yeah, I'm looking for freedom. Like I'm tired of, I've been in the tech startup game a long time, and like every company, it's the same song and dance. It's a hamster wheel over and over again. Like, that you give VC money and then you grow a whole bunch and then things fall apart, and maybe you get lucky and you do get acquired, but by the time you get acquired, you've been diluted to nearly nothing. And common stockholders, I'm just kind of tired of that game, and I'm looking to get out of it.
I get it. When I was in a startup, I remember kind of, I don't know if I stole this or I invented this, but I want to say that I invented this sentence, but I told them every path leads you to the corporate. So like, it's either you start in a corporate or you're there, or you're in a startup, you succeed, a corporate buys you, you go there, or you don't succeed, so you go to a corporate, right? So it's this vicious cycle of, if you want to get out of it, you have to find your own way out.
Exactly. No startup's going to save you. They kind of use equity not every startup, of course, but a lot use equity just as an excuse to pay you less because they're like, yeah, this will be. But the truth is, like, when VCs get involved in rounds of funding, you just get diluted so much, and there's a lot of financial trickery and backdoor stuff that goes on that's not transparent to you as a common stockholder.
Yeah, I do hope that now AI is this is kind of like more philosophical at this point, but maybe AI could help the indie hacker kind of vibe kind of fight with those big startups. Because if you think about it, the capabilities that you have with LLMs, you had to have a specialized, dedicated, 20-person team to achieve those results maybe 5 years ago even. So having that in your disposal, having Copilot, having ChatGPT, and it's relatively cheap, at least in my opinion, I think
it is, yeah,
could potentially really be interesting, maybe create, billion-dollar unicorns like Sam Altman is talking about. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, the one-person billion-dollar business.
Exactly. I actually bought a domain. I think it was billion by one. That was billionby1.com. I thought about maybe starting something with that. I'm still not sure I have the time to do it.
Yeah,
but
the AI stuff, I mean, of course, it's taking over the world. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, the VC-backed companies and big companies, like, they have that at their disposal too. So, but I don't think anyone should worry about it. Who knows what it's going to look like in 5 years? I have no idea.
Yeah, just focus on what you can do right now, and
exactly.
Don't stay in the paralysis phase just because it's intimidating, I guess.
I do like Jeff Bezos. There's a famous interview with him going around where he's like, I'm not really cared about what's going to change in 5 years. I'm more interested in what is not going to change in 5 and 10 years and focus on that. So I really like that inverted philosophy.
That's a good point.
Like real estate, people are always going to want to buy houses. That will never change, right?
You'll need that land, right? You'll need that AI data center somewhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You'll need land. You'll need buildings. You'll need something.
Yeah,
real estate related. People want to live in houses. They don't want to live in containers and condos forever. Single family homes. People are always going to want.
So, I think we can start to wrap it up. Where can people find you? What do you like to talk about in those places that people can find you, and any other shout out that you might have?
Yeah, thanks. So yournextdomain.com is my current project. So you can find me there, or you can find me on Twitter. I'm very active there as far as the social network. That's the only social network I use right now.
What do you usually like to talk about on Twitter?
I talk about a lot of tech stuff, and I build in public related to this Your Next Domain stuff. Lately, it's been a lot of AI talk. It's really learn in public because I'm not an LLM expert, and I was trying to use it for a machine learning use case, and it was actually really difficult. So,
what did you use? Just out of curiosity, LangChain or?
I code primarily in Go, which is a bit unique. Like most indie hackers use, Python or
Node.
Or Node. Or
don't kill him, guys. Don't kill him.
Yeah. No, I'm not a Node.js fan. I'm not a JavaScript fan at all. But it doesn't matter. Like, you can make great products with anything. There's so much cool tech out there. I like Go. So I was using a Go library to just call the OpenAI API. And I was running it, but there's some really cool Python libraries out there for, manipulating and just having an LLM, being able to extract structured data from an LLM but I think I'm going to go another route. It'll be with Python because
that's
honestly,
the ecosystem for that.
Yeah. Anything with machine learning, you pretty much have to use Python.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to make sure I got it, yournextdomain.com and your Twitter handle.
It's my full name, David Nix with an underscore.
Cool. So it's like David underscore or at the end. Okay.
It's David Nix underscore. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to write everything in the description and also the Twitter and everything.
Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, and see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.